Now, David Gratzer is a physician, doctor, and a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute. His most recent book, with a foreword by Milton Friedman, is The Cure, How Capitalism Can Save American Healthcare. In other words, he's a right-wing doctor, which is not that common, really. I've known you for many years when you were a mere student, and now you're very, very important.
You're good for my ego.
And you've won lots of awards as well. But
you're really good for my ego.
Before we get on to conservatism and where the medical system is going, the premise for this was, I think it's in Denmark, they're putting a special tax on foods that have a high fat content. Is this the gist of it?
That's right, and you see those sorts of things right across Europe. France actually just levied a soda tax. If you have a Coca-Cola, you pay a little extra. Hungary has a tax on fatty foods and caffeinated products. Sweden is talking about a tax on calories. So it's flavor of the month in continental Europe.
It's rather a nice pun. Is it just to raise money, or is it to try and make people healthy?
No, I think this is a genuine effort to try and curb the obesity tide that's washing right across the world. I mean, here in Canada, by the way, we're not immune to it. As you know, about 1 in 4 people are obese, a doubling of that percentage over the last 25 years.
Yes. Working at it very hard indeed. People, no, I'm going to say people should be healthy. People can be whatever they want to be, for goodness sake. And I find it quite ironic that one of the politicians in BC, the NDP MP Libby Davis, who's promoting some of this, is hardly seems to be a model of health. But personal choice is very important.
I think personal choice is tremendously important, but I also think as a society we should be careful that bad habits not get the best of us.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I don't think we were well served in the 50s and 60s when so many people were lighting up. Likewise, I think there's good evidence that obesity is linked to higher health costs, and we as a society should be concerned. But concern does not necessarily mean taxation, and taxation doesn't necessarily mean progress.
When people die younger, it saves us a fortune. I mean, you know this better than I do. It really becomes expensive when people are older. They get terribly ill. We have to take care of them. So if they die younger, we'll save a huge amount of money.
It's funny how it always comes back to eugenics with you. But look, what I would suggest is the following. We want people to live long, healthy lives. It turns out that the obese probably don't live shorter lives, but they might be more costly. But look, I mean, this isn't
slower.
This is an issue in that people who are obese are more likely to develop diabetes, heart disease, and so on. So as a doctor, as a citizen, I'm concerned. But I think the fat tax is too clever by half. Okay? Here we say, look, let's target one type of food and hope that as a result everyone is healthier. But the issue isn't that a healthy person has a can of Coca-Cola, okay, or that an unhealthy person has 4. The issue is that our overall lifestyle has changed and that we have to address it.
What about this warning on cans of Red Bull and all the various alternatives to the thing? That is, I'm loath to use the term nanny state, but it's just incredibly irritating when politicians assume that you cannot make a choice for yourself.
It actually turns out that the studies don't support any of it. As you know, in New York City, for instance, fast food joints now have caloric labeling. So you go in, and it turns out that your Big Mac has a lot of calories in it. You would never... Who knew? Who knew before Mayor Bloomberg? It turns out that there's a major study released showing that when you put calorie labelings, in fact, some people tend to consume more calories than if you hadn't. Look, this isn't an issue of people being ignorant. We know more about health and nutrition than people 10 years ago did. This is an issue of our whole diet and lifestyle changing and it getting the best of us. And as a result, we need to cut back on the carbs, we need to exercise more, and I think families should have dinner together more often. There's no tax that'll support that, by the way.
Earlier in the show, we discussed immigration, and I said to the guest that we don't have a debate in Canada. We're not allowed. Immigration's a good thing, end of story. To go beyond that makes you a heretic. The same applies to healthcare. Whenever we mention any alternative to the system we have, which is not a terrible system, but it's a deeply flawed system, immediately it's, you want the American system? You want people to die on the street? I spent some time in France and Germany in particular. It seems to work pretty well there, and people aren't complaining. It is a two-tier system.
There you go again with choice and competition. Look, as you know, I've spent most of my public policy work talking about healthcare in Canada. Is this system functional? It's very functional. We do have universal access. People within the system are well paid, and people, for the most part, are well taken care of. But hold on. Look at the province of Ontario. Health spending's up 60% in the last 8 years, roughly. Do you think your healthcare system is really 60% better than it was 8 years ago? We still have wait lists. It is true that in certain specific areas where we've lavished funding, health time waits are coming down. It's also true in many other areas they've grown. I think we're in the box here. It's either this system, deeply flawed, getting increasingly expensive, or the American system that no one advocates. That's just a silly debate. I think looking to Europe is a reasonable idea. Look to Sweden. They even have user fees in Sweden. Look, if a country where you can spend 60% of your GDP, where the Lutheran Church is actually subsidized by the government, can turn around and talk about user fees intelligently, why can't we do that here?
Lutheran Church in Sweden is so liberal it would destroy your brain, believe me. And also, it's a country that's very homogenous. It doesn't have an underclass that many other countries deal with, and it's also quite small population.
Sure. Look, I don't think you can look at Sweden as a model for everything, but my point is, if you're willing to look outside the box and look to Sweden and say, look, they've tried user fees, what's the data like? If you're willing to look at France and say, you know, in France, they don't distinguish between public hospitals and private hospitals. They turn funding over to the individual, and funding follows the individual. I think those are the sorts of things we should look at. Not necessarily adapt and adopt, but we should look at and say, what are the lessons we could learn? Unfortunately, in Canada, we hire the same consultants and the same academics who say this is the best healthcare system in the world, and it doesn't matter how much we spend, that's a good thing. And I think it does us a gross disservice.
You're a heretic. Having you here on Thanksgiving is a terrible thing. Go away, sir, but thank you very much.
A pleasure as always. Cheers.